Hi, everybody. Benita Hutchison here, your psychic life and business coach with your August forecast. Let's see what the month has in store for us. So we will start off with our card of the month, and it is the Heir of Earth. So we're just going to put that right there. When the Heir of Earth shows up, she is telling you that there are some things that are simply beyond your control. So don't fuss with them. Accept the things you can't control and work with what you can. So that's our overarching theme for this month's reading. Now to take our dice, see what we have here. Yes, it's a handful. All right, what do we have coming up for us in August? Well, we have a lot going on at the core. Everything stayed very tight this time, so this is going to make it very interesting. The chaos die is sitting in the core, and the image on it is for the grimoire. So when it shows up in the core of a reading, it's basically saying, look at a book. So this is kind of a neat thing. In this case, you're just supposed to grab a book off your shelf, open it up, and whatever you open it to is relevant to the reading. So I grabbed Illumination by Rebecca Lee, a guide to the Buddhist method of no method. And I opened it up at random and came to this paragraph. The second noble truth is articulated to highlight the fact that suffering is conditioned by the convergence of what is happening in the present moment and our entrenched habit of reacting with vexations. It is not to make suffering and vexations our enemy. It is to point out that all is the coming together of causes and conditions, and we can choose not to contribute to the conditions for suffering. Each moment we remember to do so, we are free from suffering in that moment. So, this is something I've talked about in the past. Adding pain to your pain. So, there's a lot going on right now in the world, and it's very easy for us to get pulled off of our spiritual path and attached to a lot of it. I, for one, like to stay informed, but I use it from the standpoint of everything has a purpose, everything is happening for a reason. And this entire experience that we're going through is ultimately going to lead us to strength, to oneness, to innovation. And I believe that's why our souls chose to be here at this time to have this experience. So instead of going, this shouldn't be happening and there's suffering in the world, hey, I get it. You look at what's going on in Gaza, you look at what's going on in the States and around the world. It's really easy to get really angry and upset. And I think we all feel that suffering. But if we can say, okay, what is my purpose in this? How can I bring understanding to the situation? How can I work on whatever it's bringing up for me? How can I contribute where there are openings, where the universe allows? Then we step into that, which I think is more purposeful and more useful than railing at what we can't control. Remembering that the card we got said, there are things beyond your control. So we look at what we can do. We look at where we can be kind, where we can contribute, where we can speak out, where we see injustice. And we do that, but then we have to let go, or the suffering of the world will pull us under and we won't be of any use. So I thought that was a really apt reading for this particular die. So in this case, we've had the chaos die show up in the core, which is the one we just read. Interesting, we also have the fate die there. I always check these two first because sometimes they involve moving some of the other die or interpreting them differently than one otherwise would. So this dice is really interesting. It so relates to everything we've learned so far. When it sits in the core, it pertains to a loss or an impending loss or a need to surrender. And it says, sometimes hearing that it's time to let go is enough to free people from the constant worry of the experience. Knowing that it's what to do, again, can be freeing. So, isn't that interesting? Again, it's saying free yourself from suffering by not attaching to what's going on. If you see it all as part of the divine plan, that it's meant to motivate us to do better, to grow, and to face the injustices of the world in whatever way we can in our own sphere, then we're freed from thinking that we can somehow deal with all of it. We just deal with what's in front of us and we let go of the rest. So we have the energy to be effective within our own sphere of influence. I find it very interesting that this month, none of the die went off the mat. So there's a certain intensity to looking at the die this month. It's like everything has come into play. So our actions die is showing up in the present, and it's an arm wielding a sword. If you can see that there. Um, and this one is called haste. So it's a call to arms. There's a small window for action, and it must explode into being right at this moment, or it may miss its chance forever. So it does suggest a certain urgency, the need for something to happen now. So when we look at this, it makes it really clear that there is action to take in the present moment, and how that's meant to come about will become clearer as the reading continues. In the past, we have the alchemist die, and this particular one is copper. And so it is the lightning rod. It will gather energy around it. Sometimes it's good to remember that gathering or being attractive to energy has two sides. On one hand, it gains power easily, grows and swells with potential. On the other, harsh and dangerous energies are also attracted and collected with ease. Copper may be asking you to look into what things in your life fuel you or the people you have attracted. So when it comes to looking overall at the suffering aspect, we want to make sure that the energy we've gathered from past experience is used in a way that is constructive, not destructive. So bear that in mind. It's very easy to get vexatious, as we learned from the book, but it only adds to suffering for ourselves and others, and it doesn't help us. So you really want to take that energy in a very centered and constructive way to bring it forward for the action that you're taking in the present. In the future, this is the scavenge die. It's about finding the good in a bad situation. So, for example, we see, what's happening in the States, and it's causing a number of things. It's causing more unity in our country. It's causing people to look at how they can support trade within our country and in other countries in the world. So, as hard as things are, and as much as there is struggle, there are things coming out of it that will ultimately benefit us. So it's, I like what Fred Rogers used to say, wherever there's something goes wrong, look for the helpers, look for the people doing good in the world who are inspired by what's going on. Look for what's coming out of this that is positive. So in the same place in future, we have neon, and neon is trying to pull our attention away. So you can look at a lot of the things going on in the world and get stuck in on what's wrong, but that doesn't allow you to apply energy to how to make things right, to how to move in a positive way from this experience. So don't be distracted by the noise. Look at how do we create unity? How do we create strength? How do we move forward together? So this is an interesting die here, this carriage. It's actually the first time it's turned up in a reading, and it is about the journey. So it's showing up in the past, but also close to the core. And it's saying, look at your journey. In other words, look at the big picture. What is your spiritual journey? Where have you been? Where are you going? And how can you put your current situation in the big picture of the spiritual journey? It's very easy to get caught up in the minutia of what's going on in the moment. But if you step back, if you look at the bigger picture, you can see how this is just one piece of the puzzle. There is always change. There will always be change. And sometimes when things go wrong, it's precipitating things going right. Eventually, things work out. And sometimes we need upheaval in order to change things for the good. You can't plant a garden without disturbing the soil. So it's look at your whole journey, what has brought you to this point, and where can you go beyond this? One of the things we're here to do is to wake up before we die. And in order to wake up, we have to look at our shadow. We have to look at the difficult things we normally avoid seeing. So this is metal, and it is showing up also in the past, but also really close to the core. And it is about potential. It is looking at your latent potential, your ability to grow or change. So it's interesting, we have copper here, which is one of the more flexible metals, and we have this symbol for metal. So, when you look at how it's connected to the journey, what has your growth been leading you to? How can you grow and change going forward? How can you be flexible and adaptable and bring that into the current situation? Think about all the ways in the past you've dealt with difficulties and you have grown and you have adapted and you have survived. Think about specific instances where you thought, I'm never going to get through this, but you did. So, how do you do that again? How do you use those same skills, the same wisdom you received as a result of doing that work? Very interesting that the goblin die is so close to the metal die. It's in the present, and this is about obsession, something just not leaving you alone. It can be an addiction like doom scrolling, but it's sitting next to flexibility. So it suggests an idea that keeps you up at night, that won't leave you alone. What is the inspiration being drawn from the current situation that's related to this flexibility from the past, this potential you're bringing forward? What won't leave you alone, and how can you turn that into positive, constructive action? Under Fated, it's really interesting that we see this dice. It is a sun and flower, and it's all about support, either giving or receiving it. But you see how, with everything that culminates, we come to a place where we go, we only get through these things together through community. And it's so closely connected with finding the good in the situation going forward. And we talked about that already in this reading. How can we grow in community together by learning from this and continuing to support each other? So that Fated is basically saying all of this upheaval is pulling us out of our complacency into realizing we need to stick together, we need to help each other, we need to rebuild community and not isolate ourselves. That's really important. Fated is saying this was inevitable. This was part of the big plan to pull us out of our just worrying about ourselves and remembering we are a community of people. We need to work together going forward. This was meant to be, and this is part of the big plan of drawing us closer together and getting human beings to really take care of each other again. Quite interesting that also under Fated, we have stitches about things being mended, the things coming back together, wounds being healed. So it's very interesting that under Fated, we have this support for wounds to heal. Keep that in mind and stay encouraged that that's ultimately where we're headed, because nothing hard can stay that way for long. So if you're dealing with something personal where maybe you're going through some real grief right now, know that healing can come. You might have to do some work on it, and if you need support, I'm here to help you. But we never stay wounded unless we choose to hang on to the past and not move forward. Under momentum here, we have touch. It's the longing for human connection. So again, it's really interesting when we look at this situation overall, that moving forward, again, we're reminded community, connection, togetherness. And this is really key for how we move forward. So this dice here is about loss, the kind of loss you can't come back from. We are in a changing world. The message here is some of the things that are changing. This is not about us going back to the world we knew before. It's about recognizing that this is about forward movement and accepting some things are lost to us. And sometimes the purpose of loss is to really help us to appreciate what we've had and apply ourselves to building going forward. Sometimes it's devastating, but it's the kind of thing that makes us go, okay, um, there's no going back through that door. The world has changed. How do I adapt? How do I create? How do I build on what there's been in the past? And, just so it's understood, the planet is always changing. We have had massive changes on this planet where there's been earthquakes, hurricanes, war, famine, all kinds of things that have disease that have affected and unfortunately eliminated a lot of the human population. We are, like any other creature, subject to nature and sometimes the destruction of human nature. So this is saying you can hang on to the past, you can be angry about what is dropping away in your life. And sometimes that's the loss of somebody we love. We're angry. This shouldn't have happened. How could this happen? But if we can accept it, if we can say, I've walked through a doorway and I'm now different and the world is now different. And how do I live in this different world? We can move through it more constructively. I've known people to go through illness and injury, and I hear them go, I've got to get back to who I was. And I'll say to them, you stepped through a doorway. You're different now. So instead of looking at what you've lost, what can come out of you now you never would have explored had you not encountered that loss? Loss changes us. It does. We evolve because of loss, or at least we have the potential to. So there's a lot of wasted energy in trying to get back to who you were instead of realizing there has been a transformation. And there's something within you now that can arise because the obstacle of your complacency is gone. You've had the rug pulled out from under you. Things are different now. And now it might be about grieving. You might have to go through anger. You might have to go through a feeling of injustice. And then, now what? What's the next step? Now what? What is inside of me that now needs to come to the fore, needs to take action? There's the expression that there's a Chinese symbol for disaster and it's the same symbol for opportunity. What is the opportunity in this situation that's creating loss? And you might not be able to see it right away. You might need to go through grief. You might need to go through anger. Feel all the feelings with whatever situation you're dealing with, whether it's at the micro level of your own life or the macro level about the world situation. But don't get stuck there. Don't live in the story of loss, because every time there's loss, there's something new coming your way. Nature abhors a vacuum. If something drops away from your life, it's creating a space for something or someone, some opportunity to show up. And you need to be open for that. If you're over here focused on the loss the whole time and getting stuck in it, never moving through the grief and coming out the other side, then you won't recognize and welcome what comes your way. And take all the time you need to go through grief. And I'm here to support you. Whatever is coming up for you, I'm here to help you feel it fully, not get in there a little bit, go, this is uncomfortable and let's move out of this, but really dive into it so that you can move through it. And when you come out the other side, it's not like closing a book and going, well, I'm done with that. It's a spiral path. Every now and then that's going to come up for you again. You know, I lost my father several years ago. Every now and then I'll have an experience and I'll just, oh, I'd like to call my dad and talk to him about it. And I can't. And sure, I can tune in as a psychic, but I also know, you know, you grieve, you have the connection after they've passed over. And then I usually suggest now, do your best to let go because they're on their own adventure now and you need to continue yours here. That's just my personal philosophy about it. But it's basically whatever your story is. Delve into it, feel it fully, let it transform you, but don't get stuck in the last chapter. Be open to what the next chapter has to teach you. Interesting. I believe we had this one last month, possibly in the same place. This is about the ocean. It is about change that is amoral. In other words, the world doesn't have anything against you. This is just the necessary series of events that needs to occur for our growth that our soul signed up for before we even came into this earth. And that's one of the things to remember as well. If you believe this, and I really feel it's true, our souls said, I want to sign up for this journey. There's some very interesting things that are going to be happening at this time. I want to be part of that. I want to have a deep growth experience, no matter how uncomfortable it is. This is the life where I want to clear away a lot of old karma and come to the end of this life as awake as possible. So I know the universe is going to have to really stir things up, really make me dig into why I'm having powerful reactions to things and how far back does that go? Is it just this life? Is it previous lives? But it's time to get the work done. And this is like an intensive class compared to other ones that might have been a little softer, a little slower. So if you look on it that way, then whatever happens, you can say the universe in its benevolence is giving me this advanced master class in growth because I ordered this up. I said, I want to be there for this big shift. I want to be there for this experience. I don't want to miss out on what is going to be very difficult, but also very amazing in terms of how much humanity is going to grow and shift as a result of so many massive changes in the last 100 years. You know, incredible growth, incredible change, incredible upheaval. But if we go, I signed up for this, it takes us out of victim mode. It says on some level, I chose to be here for this. So what did I come here to learn? Let's get curious. What did my soul come here for? What is the journey? What is the path my soul chose? By the way, this is the kind of work that I do. I tap into your subconscious. I help you to connect to your inner wisdom that will say, you know, this is what you need to do. This is what's on your path. And I can give you tools and techniques for learning how to check in. Is this on my path or did I get pulled into a detour? Because our conditioning we get from childhood takes us off our path, tells us, I need to be this kind of person in order to fit in with my family. And it might not have a lot to do with who you really are. So we really want to connect with our true path, and it's going to really help us to make sense of why we're having the experiences that we are having. By the way, on September 7th in Nanaimo, I'm going to be running a couple of courses that day. One is going to be called How to Be Bad, Break the Rules, and Move On to Your Real Life. And it's about undoing the conditioning of your childhood so you can discover who you really are and how to show up as that person in the world. And then the second course is going to be an intuitive writing course where you learn how to let your inner writer communicate with you through writing and help you to understand some of your inner story that's ready to come out now and inform you about who you are and how you're meant to show up in the world now. It's going to be a lot of fun. I will be putting that information up on the website really soon with an Eventbrite link. So I hope to see you there. So the chrysalis is showing up under beyond, and it's basically saying what I've just said. This whole situation is a deeper level growth experience that people can't see. This isn't something where you're going to do something, people are going to go, oh, you did that. It's going to be massive internal awakening and shifting as a result of this experience. So it's just pointing to that. This is going to help you awaken on a deeper level than you could have ever imagined for yourself before. So here we have under fate, ruin, sudden, calamitous change. The thing to understand with this dice is it's showing up with support, with healing, with amoral change. It's saying, don't be looking for comfort. Don't look to land somewhere and say, okay, good, I'm here for the rest of my life. Stay fluid, like these die told you to, because change is going to keep happening. This is a time of tremendous growth. One of the things I've often talked about is that we are going through, as a species, an accelerated evolutionary process. That doesn't happen with incremental growth. It happens with upheaval. So remember that, and this is like the tower card, everything falling apart at the seams to come back in a whole new configuration. It's necessary for big changes to occur. And again, it's recognizing that at soul level, we said, this is exciting. I want to be part of this. And remember, this is one of many human experiences. So we can be really caught up again in the minutia of our lives. Things are going wrong. Things are ruined. It's terrible. But realize your soul is saying this is a temporary and illusory experience. It's like being in a long dream that when you wake up out of this form, you can look back on and say, that was a really interesting dream. I learned a lot. But you are an eternal being having a human experience. Try and keep that in mind and step back a little bit. It's not about emotionally removing yourself. It's not about detachment. It's non-attachment. It's allowing yourself to have all the feelings, but knowing there's a bigger picture here. Interesting that the self die is right on the line between fated and past. I always find it interesting that I will tell you something, and the next dice or card I look at says what I just said. It's saying this is part of an eternal cycle. You move through this life, you learn certain experiences, and then you start again. So step away from looking at this as a small, small life. This is just, again, another cycle. Have the experience, be involved, but don't take it so seriously that you think this is all there is. This small self living this experience is something that we, from the higher level, can observe. But remember, it's only the small self that suffers. So when you step back, it's like, I've had many lives, I will have more. This is one of many experiences. And if I can look at it from the big picture, I can grow from it without being pulled under by it. Interesting that we have at this end this deep internal growth. And here, this is the disrepair die showing up under beyond over here. So it's the recognition that there are some things that we haven't dealt with, things that we've allowed to fall into disrepair. The question becomes, are they things we need to let go of and let disintegrate, or are there things we now need to focus on? Say, for example, you're so caught up in what's going on in your life right now that you're not doing some of the work you need to do. Maybe you're not meditating enough. Maybe you're not communicating with other people and you're letting yourself get isolated. So look at what's going on in your life that you go, you know what? It's time I recommitted to that thing that helps me stay on my spiritual path, whatever that is for you. Interesting that this is called the Major Arcana die, and it's saying whatever it crowns, one is to take it very seriously. So it is crowning the journey one. And again, it's basically saying, look at the big picture, look at the overall journey. Where have you been? What did you learn? How do you apply it going forward? It's about looking at your life as a spiritual journey rather than looking at it in a smaller way, right? Step back. What's the big picture here? And how are you meant to grow and how are you meant to contribute? Very interesting that we have this dice at the center, and it's about earnings. It's looking at when money is at the core of the situation. So, right now, if there's uncertainty in your life financially, it is one of the things that's going to trigger how you view this situation. This is really looking at, are you stuck in your thinking about money? Do you need to change how you work or what you do? What needs to adapt so you don't get so stuck in about this that you're just coming from a place of lack and you can't move forward? It's also about looking at what's really important to me in my life. I can focus on lack and what I don't have, or I can look at what I do have. It's looking at not just what's in your bank account, but what's in your heart, what's in your community. If you have to go without, who is around you is being supportive and kind and caring? Where can you turn for support? Where can you offer support? Moving beyond just the money issue, what are the richnesses in your life? What do you have going for you? What can you count as a gain in your life that might not be monetary? It's interesting to me that with this dice, it's so close to the one about obsession, and it's about illusion and it's about perceptions, recognizing that this is a dream world and we can get really caught up in it and think that this is all there is, but it's an illusion. So when we get into our addictions, when we get stuck in lack or anger or fear or grief, and we can't move out of that story, we really need to remind ourselves this is just one of many experiences that are part of a dream state. Um, when you look at things at a quantum level, when you look at things like Tibetan dream yoga, it teaches you that this is not reality, it's an illusory state. You know, the world around us is generated from our consciousness. We see what we have trained ourselves to see, which means we sometimes miss out on what is being offered to us, what else we can experience. So we need to keep our minds open and not get stuck in those stories. Interesting. This dice usually means there will be pain, but it's showing up in your history. So, again, the message here is look at where you've had pain. How did you grow from it? How did you survive it? What did you learn? And how do you take that lesson forward? So, when we look at the overall situation this month, I'm personally feeling very encouraged by it because what it's telling us is yes, there's upheaval, but it's all part of the bigger plan. And you've been through upheaval. Human beings have been through upheaval, and we've grown from it. And we are, again, we're eternal beings having many human experiences. So we need to remind ourselves of that and not get so caught up in survival mode that we don't see the lessons being offered, the generosity of community, and that flow that can occur when we go, I'm part of an ecosystem of people where if instead of shutting people out and just feeling lack, I can look at what can I offer and what can I allow myself to receive so that there's this intermingling of energies that help us all to move in that direction. I often quote Ram Dass when he said, you know, we're all just walking each other home. So if we look at it that way every day, in what ways is the universe in its benevolence offering me something to work with for my personal growth? What is showing up? And am I blocking myself receiving it or am I allowing it? What is being asked of me that I can contribute both in doing the internal work and in taking action in the world? Remember, in the present, we did have it say action needs to be taken. What I find very interesting is that dice, and actually what I'll do is I'll take you back to the map so you can see what I'm talking about. So we had here, don't get caught in the illusion, right? Don't get stuck in your old stories. Action needs to be taken. And we have this one. And it's saying, look at what's in disrepair that you need to work with. So even if you go, in this world that's changing right now, or in my life, there are things I can't control. And remember, the overall story here was there's things beyond your control. What is some, that might be some action that would appear small to others, but is meaningful to you. What is something you can do right now that helps you to go, I'm moving forward on this. I'm doing something meaningful to me, and therefore it's worthwhile. And it doesn't have to be anything big or showy. Remember, a lot of the work we're doing this month is internal work, but it might be something like you decide, what helps me with stress is to go for a 30-minute walk. I'm going to do that 3 times a week. Or you might go, I'm going to get back into lifting weights. I'm going to do something that feels good for my body, calms my mind, or I'm going to go to church or my grandpa or what have you. I'm going to go to a group that all have the same intention and be part of that. Community right now is really important, as we've seen in the spread, where it talked about support and building community. Community survives upheaval. There's a movie about this called Bowling Alone, and or actually the movie might be about a book called Bowling Alone. Anyway, look it up. And it talks about the loss of community. And the concept is there's people, just as many people as ever, going bowling, but they're not part of leagues anymore. They're bowling alone. We have become this stratified society. We've lost community. And it's been shown we live longer if we live in community. When everybody's part of a community, somebody will say, oh, I haven't seen that person for a while. Let's go call them up or knock on their door, make sure they're okay. We take care of each other. We are a social animal. And I think part of what technology has done is removed us from that. We get online and we talk, but we don't sit and have coffee together. We don't check in on people as much as we should. And I think that's a really important thing for us to revive, because when you're part of a group of people that are going to have their differences, but are generally moving in the same direction, wanting to care for each other, wanting to support each other, it's incredibly uplifting. You could be having a stressful day, you get together with that group of people, and you just feel uplifted, maybe more purposeful, because you've been with people with the same aim. And if you don't have an aim, that is really something to work toward. And that's a big part of what this month's reading was all about. Aim. What's the big picture here? How is your journey, your soul's path, meant to take this situation and work with it? Remember, the world isn't happening to you, it's generated from you. So if you're here at this time, you have a purpose, you have a path. And if you're not sure what that is and you need support on that, I'm happy to help from wherever you are, to tune in and help you understand what your soul is trying to tell you about your journey, so that you can have that sense of purpose. Because when you just go for happiness, there's going to be times you're going to be unhappy. When you go for purpose, you can go through some really hard things when you're like, this is part of my purpose. I can do this because I'm working towards something important to me. And we all need that passion. We all need that focus on something bigger than ourselves to carry us through. And that's a big part of the spiritual journey. In fact, one of the things I do as a psychic is I do a spiritual path spread that tells you what your next steps are on that path. And then I give you tools that I've developed over the last 40 odd years to help you actually make those steps. I hope you found this month useful. I look forward to seeing you next month. Thanks for staying. Thanks for being part of my community. I really appreciate you.